Hello everybody, this is PotterBrony and welcome to another blind reaction of some Team 4-Star stuff. This time it's going to be DBCember for 2016. And this year they're doing the top 24 Dragon Ball villains. I'm assuming Dragon Ball, Dragon Ball Z, and GT, God forbid. Right now I have parts 1 and 2 that were recently compiled and put onto YouTube. Link in the description below. Be sure to show your support to the original ones here. And let's just get it started with part 1 of DBCember. Top 24 villains of Dragon Ball. In 3, 2, 1, and go. Alright.
It's Gojira!
No, it's Hirudegarn!
What even is that name?
Movies.
The character's name actually comes from the movie's co-producer, Seiichi Hiruta, who...
Japanese, got it. This villain barely makes the list on his looks, powers, and concept alone. He has absolutely no personality nor motivation, beyond being a destructive, fire-breathing, terrifying creature that, while unique to this franchise, has very little lasting impact.
Honestly, as with many of the DBZ movie villains, he'd likely be higher on this list if he had exhibited any character or emotion, but that's all left to Hoy, who, well, he's not bad, but...
He's just a catalyst to move the plot along. Honestly, I love Hirudegarn, but he's not a good villain. Just a cool concept that does well enough for the film he's in.
He made the list.
Abilities and a horrifying design. Actually, his name even plays into that. See, the Garn in the name comes from the Japanese onomatopoeia.
Also, he gets defeated in the most infuriating way possible, negating most of the climax and development for other characters.
Dragon Fist is pretty cool, though.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
23.
But the Big Getty Star allowed him to cheat low rankings! How could this be?
Yeah, we wanted to start with the joke because some of you are probably pissed.
If some of you remember our last list, our opinions on the Cooler films
I'm not
are
gonna get too
somewhere
pissed.
firmly around middling, with Cooler himself not really shining as brightly as his canonical brother.
While his personality is less flowery and condescending than Frieza, making him less of a whole hog ripoff, he also loses a lot of what made his brother an amazing villain, leaving him... well...
Let's go over a checklist of what Cooler accomplishes, shall we?
Fair point.
Crashes a picnic? Check. Enslaves a race of pacifists? Check. Fails to kill a single person? Check.
The only thing Cooler actually kills, Goku revives. Live on, Toriyama.
The one thing Cooler definitely brings to the table, however, are his designs. His initial look is reminiscent of Frieza, but his transformed state is brilliantly designed, intimidating as hell.
And at least he's
I will say, that was
more
a
interesting
really
than
cool
his dad.
design.
It is a neat idea to explore more of Frieza's family tree, but following a near-fatal battle on an exploding planet, Cooler pales in comparison to his younger brother as a villain.
Further, his Metacooler appearance manages to be both simple and effective. He also manufactures an entire army of himself because, you know, if you want something done right, do it yourselves.
But what does he do with his new clone army? He takes over New Namek.
Kicks Vegeta in the dick.
cheaper version of the entire planet his brother destroyed.
Taking over Namek again. Oh, come on, there's gotta be another planet out there that you can exploit for something more than cabbage.
Cooler demonstrates a few unique moves and has some great fight scenes in his first movie, but his lame personality and stupid cloning scheme keep him from the upper echelon of Dragon Ball villains.
Looks like it's hip to be
Fair enough.
square, cause it ain't great to be Cooler.
22.
Hey, what's Boo doing so low on this list?
Yeah, he's a ripoff of Boo. We were pretty blatant about that last year. But now let's talk about what makes Janemba work.
His design can be a bit busy, but overall its Valentine's Day inspired color scheme and demonic motif, paired with one of the coolest weapons in Dragon Ball, already help him to stand out.
But combine that with some of the coolest techniques in the
Fair enough.
franchise, including phasing in and out of dimensions via Lego block teleportation, portal punching, and the ability to imbue matter with his own evil energy to create weapons of deadly precision.
And you have a character that would have made the top 10 if he hadn't been a shameless ripoff of a better villain and had, you know, the slightest hint of personality.
And a bigger vocabulary than a Pokemon. That being said, even Fat Janemba's design is fascinating. Oh, and he kinda opened a portal to hell, bringing back every other villain in Dragon Ball history.
Including Goku's most monstrous dictator rival, Hitler. Make sure to play Dragon Ball Z Boo's Führer on the GBA for more info.
He's also the only villain outside of GT to require Vegeta and Goku to set aside their differences and combine their powers via fusion dance to put him down.
Go, Gadget Gogeta.
Janemba, if only you were more than a pretty face, maybe we could have had something.
21.
Such a shame.
Oh god, do we have to do this?
Kaiser, get over it. GT happened.
Did it though?
As the first entry into
Yeah, it
DBCember
did.
representing the GT canon, we're starting with the last villains introduced, the Shadow Dragons.
Conjured from the abused titular Dragon Balls, these 7 characters embody the 7 balls as anthropomorphic dragons, each with their own distinct personalities, designs, and set of abilities.
Oh yeah, real distinct. And by the way, how are those personalities? Real diverse character sheets here. Is evil, also dragon, mole, question mark?
Come on, Kaiser, moles are like dragons of the earth.
Oh yeah, and frogs are the dragons of the ocean. Oh, wait, that's just dragons.
Out of the 7 that are presented, only 3 of them are truly intimidating and effective. That being said, they're actually as high on this list as they are by concept alone.
Yeah, actually, I'd happily praise that part. Much as with a lot of GT, the concept
It is an
that
interesting
are
concept.
fascinating and tantalizing, but their execution falls short. The overuse of the Dragon Balls over the last 30 years has corrupted them, releasing a force of destruction that perverts the cornerstone of the entire series, turning their prized MacGuffin into their final challenge. How could you go wrong?
We'll give it to
Like
Toei
that.
Animation for making these characters stand out with different designs and powers that make them unique. But at this point in the series, it comes off as tiresome and boring when most of them don't feel like a legitimate threat.
Sin Shenron, who becomes Omega Shenron, feels absolutely no different from every villain before him. His motivation is fascinating, but it does nothing to inform his actions. He's just evil for evil's sake, and what started as karma just becomes cliche.
Out of the dragons, Nova and Ice are easily the most complex characters of them all, and certainly do well to give depth to the plot and the events that unfold. Unfortunately, near the end, they are absorbed, forgotten, and we're left with an unsatisfying final boss.
That being said, Omega Shenron brings about many spectacular events, such as Super Saiyan 4 Gogeta and the Universal
So I have to
Spirit Bomb.
combine all
while
the Shadow Dragons
themselves
into
might have
one
been
villain.
disappointing, they certainly made for some
Well, I guess
development.
technically they did combine.
Also, they lead
but-
into the ending of GT, which we as a group wholeheartedly believe is the best ending the franchise has received so far. So, brownie points there.
So, to close, Super 17 didn't even make the list. See what, baby bitches?
20.
Evil scientist brain in a jar and his robot companion. Before Jiro and Android 19.
Those familiar with last year's DBCember list have already seen the bountiful comparisons to be made with Dr. Giro and his androids.
But we're going to review this terrifying duo on their own merits. The exceptionally cool part about them is how unique their concepts and motivation are in comparison to everything that came before them.
The plot of capturing Goku and replacing his brain to become both the strongest and smartest man in the world is fascinating and gives everything this dark sci-fi tinge that radiates particularly well with the visuals and music in this film.
Unfortunately, while their concept certainly ranks them high for us personally, their execution lacks personality. Kochin is a treat to watch because of how over-the-top dastardly he behaves throughout the film, but he's really only made that much better by comparison as Dr. Wheelo himself is...
A brain in a jar who wants to control the world because he's apparently super-duper smart and junk. While he's visually captivating, with his grotesque design and concept, he's not supported much outside of his quest for world domination via Goku's body.
And Kochin is just a right-hand man-bot who, while kooky and malicious, lacks any nuance. Although a built-in Gatling gun in the arm definitely makes him stand high up on the list as far as minions go.
All in all, perfectly serviceable, if not underdeveloped, villains that should have set the standard for others to follow. Should have, but didn't.
Guess who else isn't on the list?
19.
Slug didn't make it, huh?
Zarbon, Dodoria, and the General Frieza forces wouldn't have made this list on their own, but as a collective, they helped to propel
Have
Dragon
to
Ball
combine
new
them to make it on the list
sci-fi-inspired
again,
heights
like the
with their
Shadow
designs,
Dragons.
personalities, and overwhelming strength.
Well, overwhelming in comparison to our heroes. This isn't the first
At
time
the
we've
time.
seen such a gap in power between the minions and the good guys. But this extreme puts Gohan, Krillin, and even Vegeta on the defense at all times.
Well, until Vegeta jobs both Dodoria and Zarbon. While still being forces to be reckoned with in their own right, they exist primarily to emphasize how terrifying Frieza must be. also to give Vegeta a ladder to climb. He burns through each of them with ease, with the only hiccup being Zarbon's transformation.
But Zarbon's transformation exists not only to give Vegeta conflict, but also to introduce a mechanic that would very quickly become a staple of the franchise. That's right, kids. Transformations all basically started with Zarbon.
Unless we count the Uzaru, and that's its own ball of wax. Really though, it's the interactions these villains get with others.
Yeah, that's
that
a
help
very
flesh out
specific,
Frieza's presence
different
as a
type of
villain.
transformation.
Their deconstruction of the elite Namekian fighters is a level of brutality rarely seen in the franchise.
It's impossible to ignore just how unique and striking their designs are. The Saiyan uniforms work exceptionally well as standard soldier attire for Frieza's men. Zarbon's pretty boy look belying his beastly true form is a great contrast. And Dodoria! Look at this spiky evil bastard. He looks exactly like the guy who would kill a kid then snap his grandfather's neck.
But as they are in fact
Which
minions,
is exactly
it's
what
no
he did.
surprise that their ranking would fall beneath their masters. But that doesn't mean they didn't leave a heck of an impact on the franchise as a whole.
So,
Wait, we completely forgot
Frieza's definitely
somebody.
probably going to
Oh
be
crap, yeah,
number
how can
one.
we talk about the Frieza forces without bringing up its most memorable member?
Apool! Give it up for Apool, everyone!
Whatever. Alright, so that was the first part. Okay, so that was part 1. Pulling up part 2 now. Interesting list so far. I'm gonna have to say though, in the top 5, I know is gonna include Frieza, if not number 1, because he is like the perfect villain of the story, and they gave so much time to him, and it's like so much happened because of him, and he's just a really, really cool villain. And such a loved villain that they had to bring him back for the latest movies. But so yeah, I'm thinking that he's going to be number 1, and he's not going to be on either one of these that I'm watching today, because that's pretty high up on the list. So, check back in a couple weeks. That's we'll see if I'm right or not, but I'm pretty sure. Alright, so continuing on with part 2 of the top 24 villains, Dragon Ball villains for DBCember 2016. In 3, 2, 1, go.
Evil scientist brain in a jar and his robot companion.
Okay, point's been made. Moving on. Androids 19 and 20, the latter commonly being known as Dr. Gero, are intriguing villains. Design-wise, concept-wise, they really take the science fiction angle the series adopted in the last arc and ramped it up to 11.
The Red Ribbon Army had already introduced the concept of androids way back in the early days of the franchise.
Right.
But here we see the concept fully fleshed out as the driving force of the story.
Dr. Gero being the mastermind behind the original Red Ribbon androids is a really cool concept, and as a revenge tale, it definitely should work on paper. Unfortunately, it falls short for a couple of reasons. A good portion we can chalk up to executive meddling, but we'll get to that.
Their first appearance in this series is one of the most violent, disturbing chain of events to take place in the series, and immediately establishes these two as both a threat to our heroes and to humanity. They make no qualms murdering innocent people around them.
As well as putting a hand straight through Yamcha's chest in a sequence that, frankly, is unsettling on every level. It's such a
Fair
brilliant
enough.
beginning to these two characters that, unfortunately, just fizzles out by the end.
Yeah, and there's a reason for that, and oddly enough, it comes down to their designs. You see, a Chinese doll and an old man dressed for a trip on the Titanic aren't exactly the first visuals that come to mind when you think about major Dragon Ball villains.
Which is exactly what Toriyama's previous editor, Kazuhiko Torishima, thought. In an interview in Shenlong Times No. 2, Toriyama quotes Torishima, "I thought that the enemies had finally come. But aren't these just a geezer and a fatso?" Toriyama had not planned for another set of villains, so he ended up scrapping them for androids 17 and 18.
This does little to affect their ranking, of course, but it does explain why they start so strong and then are so quickly set aside for their younger counterparts. But ultimately, there's a lot of enjoyment to be pulled from these creepy mechanical bastards.
Including giving Vegeta one of the most badass Super Saiyan transformations in the series, and the introduction of the Big Bang Attack. Thanks, Android 19. You proved robots can feel fear.
17.
All he needed to do.
Okay. Oh shit, okay.
Okay. let's deal with this.
This idiot's got a terrifying design, and his shtick of being the legendary Super Saiyan works well in concept, but is poorly executed from start to finish. His motivation ranges from weak to laughable, and 2/3 of his films are utter garbage. He only made this list because of his impact on the audience of the franchise, and we all wish he'd been stabbed a couple more times as a baby as to save us from the suffering of having to sit through his film a collective 5 times to give you the abridged version! Speaking of which, we hope you enjoy it, we loved working on it, and we love you all so much. Next!
16.
Wow.
You'll have to excuse us, as it's only going to be myself and Kaiser this time.
Yeah, for some reason, Taka's been tied up and gagged in the storage room. I hope he's alright.
Nappa isn't exactly the first character that people think of when they hear best Dragon Ball villains. At least not until we became a thing anyway. But backpatting aside, he's actually a very effective enemy in the Saiyan saga.
The death of major characters up until this point was something that the franchise had already become familiar with, but the utter onslaught Nappa lays down is nothing short of monstrous, and it all climaxes with the death of the only character who absolutely could not die, effectively taking away their get-out-of-death-free card and setting up for the entire next arc.
His design is intimidating, his actions are ferocious, but his personality is pretty run-of-the-mill
Punched
meathead
Tian's
death
arm
machine.
off, too.
Sure, he's got some great expressions, but his standalone personality leaves him better suited to being a lackey than serving as a primary threat. That being said, he fills that job better than almost any other character in the franchise.
Not to mention, he's also part of one of the biggest memes to ever grace the— Hey, what?
Hey, kids, do you like violence?
Taka, get back in the room!
There is no Taka now. There is only Nappa.
15.
Well done.
You know who was a fun villain? Pilaf. What if you took him, but then made him effective?
You'd have King Piccolo.
Or Frieza.
Okay, but what about Garlic Jr.?
What about Garlic Jr.?
The guy's the only villain in the franchise to actually get his wish for immortality. Well, outside of a certain series that recently was released, but we're not talking about that right now. Unlike King Piccolo, who wished for his youth back like an idiot, he goes straight for immortality.
What's more, he has a background that's firmly rooted in the lore of the franchise.
Yeah, but that
Being
bit him in the
disgraced
ass, didn't
son
it?
of a banished would-be commie out for revenge is a really neat concept. While not a lot is done with it, it's definitely a backstory that helps pull together a great group of characters to fight, including Kami.
He's also such a great-looking character. A vicious little gremlin clad in robes. He really does look like Emperor Pilaf's evil twin brother, and it kind of works. His henchmen also sport some neat designs, though they mostly serve to give Goku and Piccolo some fantastic fight scenes. His transformed state, on the other hand, while not bad, doesn't really have much going for it.
Wait, does that mean transformation started with Garlic Jr.? Huh, maybe Toriyama did borrow more from the anime than we thought. Either way, he's a pretty effective villain whose film left a heavy impact on the franchise as a whole. He also had a saga in the show, but...
We're not going to talk about that. It's garbage, and we all know it's garbage. But Dead Zone is a delight for fans of both the original Dragon Ball and its follow-up Z. And Garlic Jr.'s design, along with his concept, certainly add to that.
Now, if only he hadn't gone full hubris and opened the Dead Zone, effectively the only thing that could beat him.
Never go full hubris.
14.
Yeah, but he was regretting the immortality.
Imagine being a kid who grew up watching Dragon Ball, like the original Dragon Ball. You've seen Son Goku grow from a young boy into a man, and now he's got a wife, a kid, a family. You'd think this is where the series would end, right?
Instead, Toriyama decides he's going to shake up the very foundation of the series a whole 4
And he's an
years
alien.
into the manga's serialization by introducing the main character's long-lost brother, Raditz.
Let's be frank, Raditz is not a great villain. He's there for a total of 5 episodes of the anime and a total of 10 manga chapters. After his appearance, he is soon forgotten and only ever referenced in the Saiyan saga as a measuring stick for Vegeta and Nappa.
His personality also doesn't have much that sets him apart, though his savagery as an interplanetary destroyer of races definitely sets him apart from the villains before him.
He's also got a ridiculously memorable design, with his long hair and intimidating figure. How long do you think it takes him to dry that hair, by the way? I'm guessing 3 hours? 2 on a hot day.
You're assuming Saiyans bathe. Oh man, imagine being stuck in one of those pods for an entire year. I reek of sweat after a good night's sleep. Either way, he looks awesome, and his battle with Goku and Piccolo is also particularly memorable.
They pull out all the stops to beat him, and it takes the sacrifice of Goku, the main character, to finally take the Pineapple Head down. It's an amazing scene too. The Makanko Sapo is
Interesting.
certainly not wasted on Raditz.
Unfortunately, what
Interesting
is wasted is
description of him,
opportunity.
Pineapple
They
Head.
introduced the main character's brother as an antagonistic force, but he's eliminated almost as soon as he's introduced. 10 chapters out of the 519 is pretty sad, but that doesn't change what his appearance meant for the franchise and the impact he had on the fanbase regardless.
Oh, brother, where art thou? All right, he's in hell. Let's never talk about this again.
13.
Kaiser, don't freak out.
Baby.
Dude, Kaiser, just calm down!
I'm okay, guys. I'm cool.
Kaiser, please.
Stop yelling at us!
Guys, it's fine. Baby's kind of cool.
Excuse you?
Look, I hate GT as much as the next guy, as long as the next guy has a hatred that spans multiverses. But like you said, it happened. Trying to ignore what it meant to the franchise would be doing a disservice to it as a whole. I'm not just gonna dismiss it whole hog, and I'm going to recognize that Baby was a really neat concept.
His backstory is rather convoluted, but to sum it up, Baby is the creation of the Tuffles, a race invented for the anime as a warring collective against the Saiyans. While the Saiyans were depicted as brutish, bloodthirsty warriors, the Tuffles demonstrated advanced technology that overpowered the might of the Saiyans. They were captured on planet Tuffle, a reformed planet Plant, which then became planet Vegeta after the full moon rose, and it just gets really confusing.
You can boil Baby's motivation down to, you guys took my planet, I want it back. So this planet-hopping parasite takes a few bodies, claims Vegeta's, and by the time Goku and Co return, the entire planet is possessed by this conniving little devil. When it comes to feats of villainy, it's hard to top actually taking over the planet.
I know I'm not alone in my problems with Baby, though. He does possess Vegeta, effectively removing him from the entire arc, which is a huge disservice to the character. Same thing happens to Oob. While the inception of Majub is touching, he amounts to nothing. His backstory is incredibly confusing, and his design is pretty bad.
But a single motivation does provide a new stage for noteworthy Saiyan imagery. Planet Vegeta comes back in control of a Vegeta. The Earth serves as a surrogate for the Moon in Goku's Super Saiyan 4 transformation, and Baby revives the Great Ape form with a golden tinge this time. It's a fun highlight of what defines the Saiyans as we saw them in the past.
He definitely has problems, but as far as villains go, he actually executed some pretty nasty stuff. His arc is maybe the best that GT ever had, and while still mediocre to bad at parts, Baby's origins and motivations propelled the transformation to Super Saiyan 4.
Yeah, the best of
Does Goku
GT,
dye his body
but
hair?
still kinda
like where
mediocre or
did his pants
bad.
come from? Wasn't he a kid?
His arc has a lot of great moments that unfortunately just don't salvage it. As
You're
a character,
overthinking it,
he's
man.
petulant and sniveling rather than insidious. But as a villain, Baby certainly is memorable. Maybe Final Bat had something to do with that.
Oh look, something worse than GT itself!
Alright, so that was parts 1 and 2 of the top 24 villains, all the way from 24 through 13. Next week, when check out starting from 12 to, I'm assuming, going to be 6, and then 5 to 1. I'm not sure how they're going to split it up, but got another 2 coming up. It looks like it's going to be split into 2. There should be just 2 more. And then Merry Christmas to us, huh? So, I want to thank you all for watching. Hopefully you enjoyed that. They always put together good stuff there over there at Team 4 Star. Again, be sure to show your support. Links are in the description below. And until next time, thank you for watching. Take care. Bye.